According to the Center for Disease Control, the most commonly reported infections in the nation in 1995 were sexually transmitted diseases. In Wisconsin, as across the country, the number one most reported infectious disease was chlamydia, an STD that often has no symptoms. At the corner of 7th and Michigan in downtown Milwaukee, you'll find the busiest sexually transmitted disease clinic in the state. Its official name, the Central Health Clinic of the Milwaukee Health Department.
People come here basically to learn about the different sexually transmitted diseases and to receive treatment for them, education on them, and they also can get an HIV test here while they are here at the clinic. When they make the appointment, they come to the window at their assigned time. They register by signing a consent form so that they can receive the testing and the education. And then they wait in the screening room, in the waiting room, and they view videos until their number is called. No one is called here by a name. They're all called by a number. Once they have the two blood tests drawn, one is for the syphilis and one is for HIV, then they go into the nurse's room and the nurse does a complete history, a hands-on physical exam taking cultures, does education to the client regarding sexually transmitted diseases, HIV testing, consent is signed because there is a second consent form that is a special one for that test that must be signed at that time. And then what they do is they exam to treatment, and then they'll either come back again a couple weeks later if they need to for their test results on HIV, or they're through and we ask them to bring in their partners so that their partners can be treated also.
The health department provides two types of testing, anonymous and confidential.
The anonymous one is that there's no name associated with it. So if they would use like our HIV confidential sites for the testing and it's anonymous there, they just get a birth date on the record and a 3-digit code on it. So they have to remember what number they gave us, of course, and everything else so that we can give them their site, but there's never a name associated on it. So we can never prove if somebody got that piece of paper with the test results who it belonged to. Here, with the confidential site, there is a name on it, so your name will always be posted on it, and it will also have your birth date on it. But strictly, this clinic is highly confidential, so we will not release that information to anyone over the telephone even. It's strictly an HIV test must be given in person and only in person. Everything is the same kind of package, except in the outlying sites there's no name associated with it, so if they did need to hook up with medical care or anything else, they'd have to go through another procedure to get their name on the test in order to prove that they really have had this test and it's either positive or negative.
Sexually transmitted diseases must be reported to the state, and the Wisconsin Division of Health also has representatives at the Central Health Clinic. With the largest population base in the state, Milwaukee has 65% of the STDs reported in Wisconsin.
Priorities change over years. Right now our priority is syphilis. In 1992 and prior we were involved in resistant gonorrhea, but right now we're focused on primary syphilis, secondary syphilis, and early latent syphilis. And what we do here is actually, client comes into the clinic, is diagnosed with a syphilis case. We'll go ahead and do a disease intervention interview on that client. And what we're trying to do there is educate the client on what the disease is that they have, let them know what the medications that they're taking, how they have to follow up with those tests, the medication, and whatever else. And they also do a very important part of partner notification or contact tracing, where we actually go out and try to locate the individuals that person may have been with to prevent the spread of disease.
There's been a significant decrease in syphilis, but that emphasis will continue because of its terrible consequences.
It can be carried over to a baby when the baby's born, to a mom that's infected. We call that congenital syphilis. It can actually kill a baby if it's not treated in the mother before the baby's delivered. There's other ramifications of syphilis. It can cause neural involvement. It can affect the respiratory cardiovascular system. So syphilis has a lot of consequences if it's not treated. Now, we will follow individuals under the age of 16 or who are pregnant with either chlamydia or gonorrhea infections. Right now, we don't have the resources to follow everybody, so we concentrate on those 2 segments of the population. Now, syphilis, we'll follow everybody with an active syphilis infection.
Officials say there are economic benefits from the Milwaukee STD program's prevention efforts, an estimated savings of just over $4 million in 1995.
This is individuals that may have gone on to develop an infection. As a result, would have to receive treatment. Their partners may have been infected or whatever, and as a result of our activities, prevented all that from occurring.
And that comprehensive education and prevention effort will continue with an emphasis on teenagers.
Because right now they're one of the highest at risk. Chlamydia, you were mentioning earlier, is the #1 reported STD in the state of Wisconsin, and unfortunately it also affects predominantly adolescents. Anywhere between the ages of 15 to 22 is the bulk of the morbidity report in the state of Wisconsin. And that's a concern as a program manager, because if you're at risk for one sexually transmitted disease, you're at risk for all the sexually transmitted diseases. The same behavior that puts you at risk for acquiring chlamydia also puts you at risk for acquiring syphilis or HIV. So if you can prevent one sexually transmitted disease, chances are you're going to prevent a whole host of other ones down the road.
Some people are getting the message. Unfortunately, there's a lot of younger children coming up and everything, and we do see people as young as 12 years of age in this clinic. So.
Just not listening.
No, that younger group is very hard. They're in the mentality of it's not going to happen to me, unfortunately. And unfortunately, it will happen to them with their practices.
STDs are often linked to other risky behavior, and health officials work closely with many other private and public agencies. It's been estimated that 6 out of 10 children have played with matches or lighters. The leading cause of home fires that kill youngsters under 10 is children playing with fire. Milwaukee has a special program for those youngsters.
The Juvenile Firesetter program is basically established to identify children or people in need of having some type of specific counseling. And this can go from young children that are playing with matches or have a fascination with fire, all the way up to young adults that actually have emotional problems and are setting fires for whatever reason.
Lieutenant Michael Payne heads a group of about 40 Milwaukee firefighters who volunteer to help in the Juvenile Firesetter program. They work one-on-one with the youngsters, mostly 4 to 10-year-olds. The emphasis for those referred to the program is to eliminate a repeat of the behavior.
This is kind of like the next step over. You know, they've already done something wrong, and many of them are just curious. A lot of times the parents they trusted their children not to play with the matches, and the children did it anyway. You know, so we kind of try to intervene where the child doesn't go too far into his fire-setting behavior.
About 80 serious fires per year in Milwaukee have been blamed on children playing with fire. While a few are set deliberately, most children referred to the program were simply curious, and the counselors tried to understand the behavior through a series of questions.
According to the responses to these questions, is how we determine if it was just curiosity or if the child has a deeper problem with fire setting or a deeper emotional problem.
If they determine it is more than curiosity, the firefighters recommend professional counseling. Children in the program are given information about fire safety and fire prevention. Lieutenant Payne says he doesn't believe in trying to frighten or scare the youngsters.
It would be better if he knew or she knew that you appreciate them giving you the matches. If they find matches or an outlet or something that's out of place and they say, "Mommy, Daddy, there's matches over here. Here's a lighter that I found." And if you can show how much you appreciate that, then I think that would be a better learning tool for them. So I think it's better to be positive, not scare them. Let them know that matches and fire and stuff like that are tools, and that right now they're not equipped to handle these tools.
In Milwaukee's Juvenile Firesetter program, parents are expected to help the firefighter counselors.
So we're kind of the authority figure that just there to give a helping hand to the children, but especially to the parents. I think this is really geared to helping the parents cope with a child that's curious about fire setting. And I think the program is mostly geared toward that. Although when I first got into this, I didn't realize that. But the more I do it, the more I see that I need the parents' help more than ever. You know, it's not just them coming here to see me, it's them taking something from what I tell them and teaching their children about fire safety with it.
Firefighters say it's hard to measure the success of the Juvenile Firesetter program, but they aren't aware of any repeaters from the 140 youngsters they counseled in 1995, and they believe they are making a difference.
I think basically my counselors know that they have made a difference. You know, I know they have. The department knows we have. That's why they keep it in place.
Fire education is definitely the key to prevention. If we can get those individuals that maybe are fascinated with fire, or they have a problem with playing with matches or whatever, and we can impress upon them that this isn't good for you, we'll be able to save a lot of lives.
So teach your child about fire and its dangers. Control their access to matches and lighters. And set a good example, showing that even adults must follow special safety rules. On the outside, the Central Library looks pretty much the same as it did when it opened in 1898. Stepping into the historic building, you'll still find the brilliant century-old marbled rotunda. But once you enter the first-floor lobby, it's a whole new story. Comfortable, spacious, and high-tech, the first-floor renovation is the result of a $1.5 million initiative of Mayor Norquist and the Common Council. A public renovation celebration was held last month.
This is a wonderful building, and it's served Milwaukee well for almost 100 years, but it did need a little facelift, and I think that the results are quite remarkable, and I hope you'll agree.
Special features include a new Wisconsin Avenue information desk. There's a new media center putting all video and audio materials in one place. There's a new young adult area, a special section set aside for materials of interest to teenagers.
Here at the Milwaukee Public Library, our mission has always been one of service. And with the renovation of the first floor, we are positioning ourselves to continue our tradition of service for many years to come.
The library system has worked to meet the changing information needs of city residents at all of its branches. In the Central Library, it provides them in a landmark building that dates to the City Beautiful movement from the turn of the century.
As we move into not just a new century, but a new millennium, it's important to catch the spirit that they must have had at that time and realize how important public space and public buildings can be, and that they need to be useful and lift people in their lives. And so that's what we tried to do here, is to restore this magnificent building and make it as useful as it could possibly be to our citizens.
The first floor renovation improves registration, checkout, and public access to the library collections, and also makes it easier for the staff to do their jobs more efficiently. More than 2 million visitors walked through the doors of the Central Library and 12 neighborhood libraries in 1995. It's this group, the Library Board of Trustees, that's responsible for the general care, control, and supervision of the libraries.
The trust is put in them to take care of library services for the city, to see that all of the citizens are provided the kind of library services that help them in whatever way is needed. We have a number of specific functions in terms of keeping track of our resources, as well as the kind of service that we provide.
The board has 12 members from the city, county, school board, and private citizens. 4 members of the Common Council sit on the board: Alderwoman Suzanne Breyer and Alderman Fred Gordon, Michael D'Amato and Don Richards.
I think it really does show how important that the mayor and the Common Council consider the library, its role in continuing to reinforce the importance of learning and literacy in our community.
The Board of Trustees is responsible for a collection of 2.5 million books and materials and is proud of its accomplishments.
Generally, we have a wonderful collection of books and other materials. I think that has provided a very sound foundation. We also have what I would consider a very customer-friendly kind of service. Then beyond that, most recently, we've really put a lot of emphasis on building our technology. And that includes not only here at Central Library, but also at our branch libraries. That's becoming very important. So dear to my heart are books, but we know that the use of computers and other technology is important, and so we've moved in that direction.
The renovation is one of a number of changes to make your visit to the Central Library more pleasant. They include the Simply Espresso and Bookseller shop in a new East Corridor location. The volunteer Bookfellow organization has raised more than $300,000 for the library through this operation. And more changes and improvements are on the way, including a new children's room in the space vacated by Discovery World. It's all an effort to attract new customers.
I've been using the library probably for over 40 years, and I think that one of the ways that we encourage the use is by actually beginning with children and having them get their library cards and become active library users.
There are 1,400 miles of streets in the city of Milwaukee. At night, nearly all of those streets are illuminated. 75,000 lights, most with their own distinctive name, like the Cutoff, the Cobra, the Shepherd's Crook, the Quad Canister, and the Drop Down.
The cutoff fixture is used generally in areas where you do not want the light source shown. It's a fairly efficient light source, but it does hide the light and tends to drop out of the background if you want the architecture shown with light and without seeing the bulb itself. Generally, the Cobra is used to light arterial areas where you need an even light source throughout the width of a roadway, and you need the throw of the light without interfering with traffic itself. The Shepherd's Crook is a decorative light. It comes in both high-level and pedestrian-level lights.
The Milwaukee Lantern was originally designed to handle electric arc, gas, or electricity. It's been copied by many cities. The decorative harp light is a variation designed by the same architect. In the Third Ward, another decorative style. Adjoining property owners pay the cost of special lighting projects. The drop-down light, economical and easy to maintain, is the one most common in residential neighborhoods.
Residential neighborhoods, we usually install a 100-watt sodium fixture, which is quite a bit down source from the 250 watts, but will give you adequate light in a neighborhood, but won't be it'll be somewhat of a crime deterrent as well, but it won't, could I say, give the residents in that neighborhood a lot of glare and that type of thing to prevent them from doing their normal daily functions like sleeping at night or those type of things.
And all lights are now on a little longer to increase driver and pedestrian safety.
In last year's budget, the aldermen felt that we were not getting the lights turned on early enough or off late enough, so they added monies to the budget. Basically, we are now lighting the area from dawn to dusk.
There's over 9 million feet of underground electrical cable in Milwaukee, another 450,000 feet of overhead wire, all of it maintained by the Infrastructure Services Division.
We have about approximately 75 electricians and other associated employees that work with these electricians to install street lighting in specific areas where either we've upgraded and gone to a new source of lighting, which now is sodium vapor, or we're converting to underground from a temporary lighting source which would be overhead.
A city crew completed an underground project recently at Kinnickinnick and Russell, installing transformers to lower the primary power to a usable voltage.
You're looking at two electricians installing a step-down transformer from a primary voltage of about approximately 2,300 volts, stepping it down to anywhere from 130 volts to approximately 200 volts. Basically, they're taped up and sealed with a stress cone to prevent corona or arcing within and prevent water and moisture from getting inside the step-down transformer, which would ground it out and thereby cause a fault on the primary circuit. These are sealed up with what we call a compound, which is a black tarry-like substance similar to what a roofer would use to seal the roof on a home.
Additional alley lights are being installed in an effort to reduce crime, and the city will respond to your concerns about lighting.
We research the problem and find out whether it is feasible or if the problem is legitimate, and then we take steps to correct it. If there are problems, the contact number directly to this division, this is Infrastructure Electrical Division, it's called. The phone number is 286-3481. So if there's any complaints or problems regarding street lighting, that's the primary phone number to call.
There are some 50,000 poles in the city, with about 350 replaced each year, many because of auto accidents. It'll cost about $2.4 million to light city streets and alleys this year. A conversion to high-pressure sodium lamps will help keep energy costs down.
That was done because it's a much more efficient type of light. It gives a lighting source that is adequate, as well as the efficiency is probably 10% greater than the lighting that was being used at the time that it was converted. So we're trying to give our residents more for their money is really what the focus is.
Photocells turn on many of our lights, but most are regulated by a system which sends radio signals from a central location to substations throughout the city. An ongoing maintenance program replaces each lamp every 3 years, but every year about 3,000 have to be replaced when they burn out.